if World War II was anything to go by, you really don't want to make Polish people angry because they let you know about it very violently. And the operational history of Błyskawica is pretty much a case in point. And I'll also just mention last comment on Haida as well is she's twinned. Like cities are twinned, well, she is twinned with Błyskawica. So they have that relationship continues to ongoing. And the reason that they're twin is they're operational together as well in 10th Flotilla. So Błyskawica started off as the second of a two-ship class. The other one was Grom. So the one that's called Lightning is Błyskawica. Grom was Thunder. And of note, Gremiashi also means thunderous, and we'll be coming back to that in a little bit. It started off in the mid-1930s. The Polish were trying to get new destroyers, and they tried France, and it didn't work out too well. They tried Sweden, that didn't work out too well. And so they ended up talking to the UK. And the UK, by this point, especially with Triumphs coming along as well, are definitely well known for making good ships. So they go to the British, they ask for mainly foreign armaments. So she's very heavily armed with 7 120mm Bofors guns, as well as torpedoes and the smaller caliber stuff as well. And she was also fast, coming up at some 39 knots. Now, of course, she's built to fight, and as soon as it looked like the Germans were going to invade, she ran away, which was a very sensible thing to do, all things considered. And this meant that she was able to cause the Germans complete hell for the next several years, starting off with Dunkirk, for example. So she was there covering the escorts. She's basically everywhere. She ran convoy escorts. So, for example, the PQ-13 that I mentioned earlier that Gremiashi had attacked the U-boat. Błyskawica was one of the escorts to take the convoy up to Iceland. But, of course, the Swedish weapon was not in Royal Navy service. So in order to, given how much they were shooting, they needed new ammo. They basically decided, let's put British guns on this ship instead. They take the Swedish 120s off, they put British 4-inchers on, and with all the ammunition in the world, they're now basically effectively part of the Royal Navy operationally, together with the Canadians and everybody else that's up there. They continue to cause havoc and mayhem. She attacks U-boats, she shoots down airplanes, she is the sole defender of the Isle of Wight town of Cowes. During an attack. Cows, I'm sure Jingles will correct me. And basically, there's 160 bombers show up, and all you got shooting back of any great note is Błyskawica, and also pumping smoke as well to obscure the German targets. So as I said, she ends up working with Haida in the 10th Destroyer Flotilla, takes part in the Battle of Ushant, where there's engagement with German destroyers. And the two ships have basically been friends ever since. And of course, she is a survivor. She is sitting now quayside in Poland, where you can go visit her if you ever want, as well as playing it in the game. I'll just make mention also, she's accompanied in this convoy by two other fairly famous ships, HMS Exeter and HMS Cossack. Exeter, of course, Battle of the River Plate, engaged Graf Spee, took extremely heavy damage. Unfortunately, did not survive the war, ended up being attacked by Japanese and sunk by, if I recall, torpedoes. And HMS Cossack in the back is famous for the last hostile boarding action, at least that I can think of, where she went up against Altmark, which granted wasn't a warship, but was still enemy held and apparently did offer resistance. And the purpose of that was to rescue the crews that had been captured by the German raider Graf Spee, which had been engaged by Exeter, who was in front of her in the line of convoy. So I don't know if that was a deliberate sequencing by the organizers of the parade or not, but that's a nice little touch. So I open it up to any questions or other commentary, like how do you pronounce cows or cows?
You had it right the first time. It is cows. There's actually I can't pronounce the name of the captain of the Błyskawica at the time, but there's a square in the town that was named after him in recognition of what his ship did for the defense of the town in World War II. Not that I've been there.
I think I've flown over it.
Yeah.
in a Spitfire of all things.
Oh wow!
So it's the snazziest thing in my logbook. Is I got like Cessna 172, then Spitfire. But anyway, so as I say, Błyskawica is available for visiting. I do hope to get there. I haven't gone to her yet. Has anybody else?
No? She was on my list of ships to visit in Europe before the current situation developed. So hopefully once that's all done and dusted, I will be going and visiting her.
I haven't visited her, but I do have a confession to make. Jim, I hope you can find it in your heart to forgive me. But when I was a callow youth, I was actually in Baton Rouge, and I never visited the kid. Oh. Didn't even know it was there. I'm so sorry.
Well, in fairness, half the ships in Portsmouth I haven't been on. I mean, Victory, yes. But some of the other ships that they have there, I haven't.
Warrior is well worth a visit. It's incredibly well preserved.
It's, I mean, it's, they're government funded though. So a lot of the museum ships in the US are not government funded. And it's not cheap, especially given we got some
volunteer labor and funding for sure. Yeah, they're labors of love in most cases.
Well, you can get a ticket for the Portsmouth Historic Dockyard that includes all the sites, and the ticket's good for a year, so you can keep coming back. If you missed anything, if you didn't have the time to see everything, keep the ticket.
It's a little bit of a drive from Texas.
Yeah. And yeah, just to go back to the point you were making right at the beginning, Chieftain, the when the Polish Navy that of it that managed to get over to the UK in time had to be sort of farmed out to various formations of the Royal Navy to work alongside, the Royal Navy checklist basically went, right, we have some very, very angry, very, very skillful men. Who should we pair them with? So who are our most aggressive men? Well, those will be the destroyer captains, right? Who's the maddest and most aggressive of the lot? Well, as naval historian Dr. Alexander Clark will tell you, that would be the tribal class destroyers. And so the Polish ships such as Błyskawica and Piorun were all sent to operate with tribal class flotillas, where they definitely pulled their weight. Of course, there is the famous story of Piorun flashing "I am a Pole" by signal light at Bismarck in the middle of a night engagement, because not only were they happy to sling 4.7-inch and 4.5-inch shells at people, but they also wanted them to know exactly who was sending them that way.
I seem to recall, I might have this wrong, but I seem to recall there was one ship that flew under 3 battle flags at the same time. It was French, Polish, and British, if I recall. It was an escaped French ship that the Royal Navy took into service, and they gave it a Polish crew.
Yeah, I remember something vaguely about that. I can't remember off the top of my head which ship it was. But yeah,
I'm going to have to look that up now. That sounds intriguing.
But there's a reason Błyskawica was off of the Isle of Wight, and that's because effectively most of the Polish crews, if they had any choice at all as to where they were going to be assigned, they wanted to get in on the closest and most vicious action they could find. Yeah. And yeah, the English Channel was about as close as you could get to German-held Europe at the time.
Okay, I think we're going to move on to a video now, some of the Błyskawica footage. We've got Naval Legends videos on lots of ships now. It's wonderful. Not quite sure if that's this second or not, if we're going ahead.